Hi, this is our Subduction Challenge by Chris, Milo, and Timothy. For our challenge, we create a stop-motion animation to show how the San Francisco Bay Area came to be. Our story begins 500 million years ago, when San Francisco didn't even exist. Deep underwater, the Pacific Plate started moving towards North America's west coast. 300 million years later, the supercontinent Pangaea started breaking up, and North America started moving west towards the Pacific and Farallon plates. At the same time, the oldest rocks in the Bay Area formed, which was chert. Chert is a rock that is made of dead compressed radiolaria, which gather up and form on the bottom of the ocean floor. 50 million years later, the Farallon Oceanic Plate started subducting under the North American plates. This process formed volcanoes that would eventually become the Sierra Nevada. When the mid-ocean ridge stopped, the Farallon Plate basalt was pushed up after being scraped from the top of the Farallon Plate. The basalt was met with minerals like olivine and pyrrocene, and with a little bit of pressure, it was able to transform to serpentinite. This is only one of the reasons that we have serpentine in San Francisco. 50 million years later, Greywacke sandstone was produced by underwater avalanches, causing different types of sediment to get all mixed together in unusual ways. This is also called a mélange. After 70 million years, the mid-ocean ridge of the Farallon Plate hit the North American Plate. The mid-ocean ridge is a giant chain of underwater mountains, and the Earth couldn't subduct something that big. So instead, the Pacific Island Plate and the North American Plate had to slide past each other. This created the San Andreas Fault, a transformed fault where the Pacific Plate and the North American Plate slide past one another. After extending north for 20 million years, the San Andreas Fault arrived in the Bay Area 10 million years ago. The coastal ranges were formed 4 million years ago by the result of pressure between the Pacific and North American plates. The ranges were then folded and folded, creating the ridges and valley features of California. 2 million years later, the valley where the bay lies today was formed, when the surrounding mountains and hills started to rise on either side. 600,000 years ago, the first marine-influenced rocks formed in the bay, meaning that 600,000 years ago was the first time the ocean connected to the bay. The most recent ice age started 100,000 years ago and lasted until about 10,000 years ago, where ice sheets covered much of Asia, Europe, North America. The shoreline reached past Farallon Islands due to much of Earth's water being locked up in glaciers. Then, about 8,000 years ago, there was a major glacial melt that flooded the San Francisco Bay. In 1906, a 7.9 scale magnitude earthquake occurred off the coast of San Francisco on April 18, 1906, at 5:12 a.m. This earthquake was devastating not because just the magnitude, but because of the aftermath. It was catastrophic because there was a massive fire after it. It was one of the most devastating earthquakes to happen in San Francisco. The theory of plate tectonics was first thought of in the 1960s. This theory states that Earth's solid crust, lithosphere, is separated into plates that move over the ascentosphere.
Thanks for watching.